Hello, good evening, and welcome to Watching Brief for the week of the 21st of June 2021. I am joined at the end of the day, at the end of a very eventful day, by my co-host Andy Brockman. Good evening.
Good evening, Mark, and good evening, everybody.
Good evening. And today we're going to be short and sweet in our ever ongoing Watching Brief introduction in terms of bringing you the news of the day, because today's episode is going to be slightly longer than usual in so much as we have an awful lot to talk about, and well, more to the point actually, we have an awful lot to let other people talk about in this episode. Today was a day when people were protesting outside Sheffield University buildings and making very powerful points in defence of archaeology and languages and related cultural interests at the university ahead of a Senate, decision, comment on Wednesday. Do you want to just explain that,
Andy? The new viewers start here. No, as people will be aware, there's been a dispute running in Sheffield because the university has decided to effectively end archaeology teaching in its current form, as well as making major changes in the School of Languages and Cultures. The staff and student body and an increasingly wide catchment of people in the outside world away from Sheffield University have become concerned by this. And cut to the chase, on Wednesday, the University Senate, which is on paper an advisory body, is going to meet to supposedly advise the university on whether to adopt the proposal to axe archaeology. But as we'll hear, how they actually do that, nobody really knows.
No.
Least of all the people who are most concerned.
Anyway, here is a flavour of today's protest.
So you can see more people are coming. In just about 20 minutes we will start with the speakers.
Just tie it. The amount of stress.
Good morning, Sheffield! Good morning, Department of Archaeology! Good morning, School of Languages and Cultures! Good morning to everyone who's come out today to support us! Good morning, Aldi shoppers! Thank you all so very much for coming out today to support the Arts and Humanities here at Sheffield. But this goes just beyond that. This is a question of what kind of university do we want to be part of? Do we want to be in a university which waters down its programme? Do we want to be part of a university which has got unethical, biased and ill-founded attempts? Ill-founded attempts to water down our programme? Do do we want to be in a university which funds, supports and appreciates every single part of their department?
So a fairly well attended event, as you can see, and lots of passing traffic honking their horns and in support. It's always good to see a bit of solidarity. We often see this sort of thing outside the university buildings, for example, in Newcastle from time to time when similar strikes are happening. But nonetheless, good to see that support. Also, just on an editorial note, I think I'm wearing the same T-shirt I wore possibly in the previous episode. It has been washed, by the way, folks. Just it's just a warm day, and this is a nice thin T-shirt. I suppose we should say that we've chosen some highlights from the speakers of the day, haven't we, Andy?
That's right. We thought, obviously, it was an hour-long event, and so we can't play all of the speeches. We will post the link to the live stream that was that has been posted by Save Sheffield Archaeology. They recorded that this morning, so anybody who wants to see all of the speeches can watch them there. But we have basically taken clips of the key arguments and the main issues that were addressed by the speakers this morning.
Hi, my name is Helen Thompson. I'm a PhD student in the Department of Archaeology. Today I want to talk to you about the unethical review process for the Department of Archaeology, which has led to the possible closure of the department. Firstly, I want to highlight the fact that these decisions have been made during the global pandemic. The University Executive Board is victimizing staff and students who have already struggled to survive the hardest year we've ever lived through. It is completely unethical that a decision like this is made while the pandemic is still happening, and it is an outright disregard for mental health. I also want to speak to you about the Executive Board's marketization of the University of Sheffield and their disregard for the fact that the University of Sheffield was founded as a university by and for the people. As we know now from the media, during one of the student review meetings, Deputy Vice Chancellor Jill Valentine referred to the university as Marcs and Spencer's and students who didn't meet entry requirements as Aldi level products. If I had applied to the University of Sheffield for my undergraduate, based on their current entry requirements, I would not have been accepted. I struggled in high school, I had a learning disability, and I found it difficult to find passion for what I was studying. I was an Aldi level product. My grades steadily improved during my undergraduate because I found archaeology, and I was motivated to do my work. When I came to Sheffield, I had a 3.1 GPA, but barely scraping a 2.1 in the UK. I finished my master's in the Department of Archaeology at the top of my class. I'm now fully funded for my PhD, and I'm proud to be an Aldi academic.
I'm proud to be a member of the Department of Archaeology, working alongside my absolutely amazing colleagues and students. And I'm proud to be part of Sheffield Archaeology, where generations of Aldi's, Marcs and Spencer's, and all other supermarket shoppers have been supported, and encouraged to think critically about the human past, but just as importantly, to think critically about how to be human in our present society. And this is one of the core values of arts and humanities. So this has been a difficult few weeks for the department, and we're so grateful and encouraged by the outpouring of support from around the world. But these weeks were preceded by years of under-resourcing and hostile management decisions, leaving me and my colleagues frustrated and angry, with increasing amounts of our time taken up with useless paperwork. What we've experienced has created unhappiness and dissatisfaction, and it has become clear over the past few weeks that it's not just our department. This is a common feeling across the institution. The university's management strategies are criminally eroding goodwill and wasting the talent of its core resource, its staff.
I'll be honest with you. I'm a member of the union, but I'm by no means a strident unionista, and I've never spoken at a rally before. And I think it's a sign of just how much of an existential threat I think this is to us that I'm speaking here today. And it's a sign of how outraged I am at the treatment of my school, my colleagues, my students, and my discipline. I know people are getting scared and some are wavering, but there's no doubt that this plan, this so-called plan for languages, is a bad plan. Academically, it's bad for the staff, and it's bad for the students. Virtually all the staff in SLC against the plan, staff in SEAS and MLTC against the plan, most of our students against the plan. Thank you. The thousands of people who signed the student petition, who are sort of former students, potential students, families of students, they're against the plan. Various professional associations and subject associations and external examiners have written in, they're against the plan. Because this tiny, tiny, tiny group of a handful of individuals, mainly non-specialists in modern languages, they're all right, and the rest of us, the thousands of us, are all wrong. Go figure. This is particularly upsetting in a university which people have said already always seems to value people. When I came to Sheffield about 2004, 2005, I didn't apply here. I was headhunted. I was persuaded. I was wooed to something. And it was the values of the university which attracted me. Then DC invited me to visit a few times. I fell in love with the city. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the community of colleagues and students. And I fell in love with a university which was based and rooted in people and valued above all else a sense of academic community. The then DC at the time used a very interesting phrase. He said to me, "This is an elite institution, but it's not an elitist one." But that means it's time for us to stand up for the humanities, stand up for the arts and humanities. A world which is not informed by the values of the humanities is a dangerous world, and not a very pleasant world to live in, I think. And our university... Thank you.
Archaeology, we're fighting for the future of our past, against rhetoric that says we don't matter. For commercial and local government archaeologists who've been worked to the bone over the pandemic, who now face threats due to planning reform. We're fighting for university archaeology, for a degree that produces flexible graduates who can deal with anything. And we're fighting for all of those who are still to come and study here, for all the subjects seen as non-profitable, all the stories that will never be told if you cut this down. I am just one of many academics and students from other universities, archaeologists working in commercial sector and local government, Sheffield alumni, international partners who value your incredible reputation, and saying this: we see you, we support you, we will not be silent, and we will not continue to stand idle. We stand together, so let's make them hear us and make some noise.
Thank you, Chloe. That's a flavour of the arguments and the speeches this morning. To get a personal view of what's going on at Sheffield at the moment, earlier we spoke to Liam Hand, who's the undergraduate who started the now very successful petition to save Sheffield Archaeology on change.org. Liam Hand, you're a third-year undergraduate at the Department of Archaeology in Sheffield, but more to the point, you're also the person that instigated the petition on change.org to try and save the department. Now, just as we started recording, it was standing at 44,494 signatures. Did you have any idea it would grow that big when you started it?
Absolutely not. I mean, I hoped we would get traction and we would be able to do something about it, but not of the scale we've seen. I don't think I've seen this kind of response to things within higher education like this in my lifetime, at the very least. I mean, there may have been, but I've not seen them. It's been overwhelmingly positive, the response from not only the archaeology community, but just the wider community across the country, really. I mean, with those kind of numbers.
And what do you think it says what message does it send to the management of the university?
Well, I mean, I mean, quite a few of the signs we've seen today say it very well, that archaeology matters. And it doesn't just matter to the people who study it, but it matters and it's important to the wider community. We've seen so many different messages of support from different angles and how important it is. And I think to sort of reiterate that value to the intrinsic value it has to like a society now more than ever has been important. And it's really good to have that platform, the size of the platform we've had to do that. I think it's quite a hard message to ignore for somebody in upper management at the university. I think it's very telling that like the scale and the sort of enthusiasm that has been approached with from like everybody involved, really.
That's one of the things that struck me covering the story. Actually, it's not a niche protest from a small group of people. You've first of all, as a department and as a student body, you seem to have been working hand in glove, as it were. And then today's rally for the arts and humanities also brought in the language schools at Sheffield, which are also undergoing some quite radical changes. Do you think it's important that this is seen not just as an issue for staff who might lose their jobs and for changes in the language school, which arguably they say diminishes the value of culture in language courses?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the culture in language courses, because I feel like specifically what we've done today is really highlight, because if there's one thing that have archaeology and the SLC have in common, it is culture. We both look at culture. We look at archaeology studies ancient cultures, they're studying the cultures now. And it is this sort of, as so many people have put really well, cultural vandalism that has been highlighted as the commonality between these two. But I do think it's important. The reason this is important and the reason that, aside from saving the department, that we're having this conversation is there is this ongoing wider conversation about these things not being around in higher education anymore, removing these sort of these courses which promote almost like this sort of self, really the strong sense of understanding things and taking and questioning things and approaching things from different angles. And this is a really important skill set for a healthy like society. And these are things that you remove them, and then you just end up with an echo chamber of people just regurgitating the same things, and it's just it's a very unhealthy environment, especially with the current political climate, to be removing things like this from when we're already isolating ourselves from the rest of Europe and the rest of the world to some extent. It's dangerous, to be honest, I think.
That was certainly a message that some of the other speakers were putting across during the rally this morning. However, the university would say that they're dealing with hard economics and hard realities of university funding and university student funding. How do you respond to that to that position that they've taken?
Well, recently the University Executive Board finally decided to release some actual data, which is kind of them. And having seen that as a student, it doesn't take a genius to work out that it's been cherry picked. Like, I don't think that the information has a sufficient context to understand the situation that has gone on over the past 10 years within archaeology, not within Sheffield. It doesn't take into account the growing demand for archaeologists. It doesn't account for the several changes in management that we've had and mismanagement we've had as a department. It doesn't account for the grade boundaries changing every 5 minutes because faculty or whoever deems that acceptable. And these change, and it doesn't account for these big names in archaeology which were at Sheffield retiring or moving on, and then them not allowing them to rehire to fill those gaps. So it's this systemic thing where the analogy I would use, it's like they've approached it as though, say you've got a restaurant that's not doing well, they've sold the tables and chairs and they're wondering why no one's coming. That's how I would describe it. They're not investing in the quality of things, and the department and staff have done incredible despite that, not because of the university, despite the university. That is what I would say. And all it needs is that little bit of reinvestment to be able to do what they're doing already, but better, to be honest.
So obviously we had the rally this morning that was looking ahead to the meeting of Senate on Wednesday the 23rd. What do you expect from Senate? What do you hope for from Senate?
Well, the Senate obviously is comprised of a lot of academics from the university, from various departments. And what I hope from the messages from what we've been trying to put out there, but also from their own perspective, is that they have to realize this is a wider issue that might be affecting archaeology now, but it's not going to stop at archaeology. Archaeology just happens to be the first one on the chopping block. And the way arts and humanities are being used, in particular within this university, within universities across the country, is like we're at crossroads, really. If we let this happen now, then it is a slippery slope to other departments, whole fields being lost from higher education, and it's setting a dangerous precedent. I mean, if the approach they've had towards archaeology was to be applied to many other departments who may be in similar or worse situations across the university, then at what point does that stop? Are we going to become a university that is engineering and sociology, which are courses that are very big, and they both are either very cheap to run and can put a lot of numbers in seats, so they have a high turnover in terms of cost. They're very efficient to run, or we're world renowned for it, and we've got all these funding, we've got lots of international students, which the university has made very clear they value, and they should value. It's important to have an international community, but that shouldn't be all it's about, and it should be because of the international aspect of that, not because they spend more money. They this very purely financial. I think it's important to consider the financial viability of things, but it can't be the only consideration in an institution that's meant to be education, not a business. It's an unhealthy approach.
And I think we'll leave it there. Thanks very much, Liam, for talking to us.
Yes.
A very impassioned perspective there from Liam. But then again, what else would we expect from someone who started such a successful Change.org campaign? We also took the opportunity this evening to revisit Professor Umberto Albarella and Helen Thompson, the PhD candidate who we heard speaking a little earlier, to see how things are moving on since we last spoke to them a couple of weeks ago, but also how they feel and what they are thinking ahead of Wednesday.
Hi, Andy. First of all, thank you very much for having us here and provide us with the opportunity to clarify our position, what many people will probably find a rather puzzling situation, which we find ourselves in. Yes, absolutely. I think the campaign has grown, but it has always meant to be a campaign that went beyond the threatened closure of the Department of Archaeology of Sheffield. This is a campaign that concerns the way universities are managed, the kind of toxic environment that many people will agree has become endemic to British universities, and I would say probably beyond Britain. And so it's a campaign that also wants to put together people who are from the university, are also outside the university. So we were delighted first to see two departments working together, archaeology and School of Languages, especially because that meant cooperation between two departments rather than competition, which is the kind of direction which many university managers want us to do. So cooperation has been the key for us. Cooperation within the university, but also outside the university. And so there were people from community groups in the city and also outside the city who came to our support. And one thing that was especially heartening is that there were people from other universities in the country who came to support us. So this is what solidarity means.
And Helen, in your speech to the rally this morning, you made a big point of the fact that on your particular academic journey, you might not even have been admitted to Sheffield on your grades when you were leaving high school, I guess. But now you're a PhD candidate. What do you think your journey tells the managers at Sheffield about the approach that they're taking?
I think it says a lot, really. I mean, to be frank, I wouldn't have done as well as I did in my master's without the support from the department. I worked hard, but I worked hard because I was motivated to do so, and I had the support and the inspiration around me that told me, no, you can do this. You can do well in academia. I wasn't sure I would even pursue academia until I did a master's, until I realized that, you know, I had that potential and that there was those pathways for me. So I think that what it should tell the managers at the university is that really the support from a department and what you do while you're at university matters way more than what you did beforehand. And kind of the trajectory of afterwards is way more important than what you might have done in high school. You know, when you're 16, 17, 18, that's not reflective of where you're going in your future.
And talking about support, something I've picked up covering the story is that there's a lot of concern from the student body, and particularly from master's students and from PhD students like yourselves, that the university isn't going to be able to provide the kind of support you were expecting when you signed up for those courses. Now, obviously, the university says that there's a change process that it's undertaking and that you will be fully supported. But at the moment, does the university management have the confidence of the student body and your colleagues?
Not at all. I think there's two things about that. First of all, I think it's a bit insane, really, that they're talking about these changes as if they're already set in stone and that they're already happening when the final decision hasn't been made yet. They've formulated an implementation group, which I believe meets before the council vote even happens. And the second thing is, no, we've received no reassurances. We've asked a lot of questions. We've had the opportunity to have a couple meetings where we've been able to ask questions, and we've specifically asked, you know, will our supervisors be made redundant? And the response we just get every time is there's processes in place for if that happens. And it's a really vague answer. It's kind of dismissive in some ways of our genuine concerns. And I think there's a lot of students, undergraduate, PGT, PGR, who are all, you know, our mental health is falling to pieces, to be honest, and we deserve more support and more answers.
And Umberto, process has become a focus of a lot of the work, certainly that we've been doing on the story. And our audience might be aware that a while back we broke the story that the university had admitted that notes and transcripts from the review group meetings have been, quotes, disposed of. Now, on Monday, I think it was last week, the University and College Union, your trades union, issued a very strongly worded statement suggesting that the university managers were generating a sense of mistrust, really, across the university, and that they needed to be much more open and transparent and start to talk very quickly. Otherwise, they would be losing really the confidence and support of their academic staff. What's happened since that letter was issued?
Well, the only thing that has happened is that the same attitude continues unabated. You know, it's perhaps they know, or maybe they don't care that the trust has already been lost, and therefore they don't think that there's any reason why they should change their way. I mean, one of the things I found, I really wouldn't know where to start in terms of the level of manipulation that we have been subjected to. But just one of the things I could just mention that comes to my mind straight away is that they are sending letters to applicants basically already providing the indication that the department is no longer going to exist. Of course, they always use some kind of expressions that leave that kind of door open. But just to give you an example, master applicants receive letters that say, we guarantee that your master program is going to run, but we will keep you informed regarding the possibility it's going to be run in another department. You know, you can imagine if you are a master applicant, how you are going to respond to something like this. There is continuous ambiguity and some form of manipulation. To be honest with you, yes, I'm afraid that there is absolutely zero trust at the moment. And one thing, I mean, some master students have written to me more than several, just say, okay, but we want to be guaranteed that we are going to be taught by you. And unfortunately, I can't guarantee that to them. And so, you know, I think they have to go their own way. And I think probably that's the game and the university is playing, is just making sure that these people don't come to Sheffield, and therefore they can say, oh, look, this department hasn't got a sufficient number of students. I mean, the relationship, we have hammered on this point many times. Many students go to a certain place because they want to work with certain people. And for instance, for the PhD students, going back to Helen's point, when they asked, okay, what is going to happen to our supervisors? And then the decent answer that would indicate some form of understanding, compassion towards the students would be, we guarantee that your supervisor will be in place until you have finished your PhD. But no, this is not what they hear. They hear some kind of vague promise that there will be a process in place. But anybody who has done a PhD will know perfectly well that the relationship with the supervisor is unique and it can be easily replaced. To the point is that, you know, when we are on research leave, okay, on study leave, which I'm afraid happens more and more rarely, we continue supervising our PhD students because nobody can replace that kind of work. It shows complete lack of interest in the well-being or either staff or students.
And Helen, looking ahead now, Wednesday we've got the meeting of Senate. What input have the student body had in terms of the Senate discussion and issues and questions that can go to Senate on Wednesday as part of the discussion of the review document?
Yeah, so we've had a direct line with the Students' Union, which they've been really helpful, especially the education officer and the Student Union president. The entire Students' Union officers will be able to be at the Senate meeting and we'll each have a chance to speak. So we've been preparing some documents for them, kind of our arguments on how this hasn't been transparent and all the ways that it's been unethical and it's disregarded student needs. And they will get to read those out at the Senate. So some of the stress we're feeling right now is that it is an advisory panel, I suppose. They don't get to vote, which I think in itself says a lot about the management of the University of Sheffield at the moment. I think that the Senate should have to vote. I think that that would be more democratic. You know, it's a very small number of people now making the final decision rather than a Senate of 40 to 50 academics who are well informed. But hopefully, you know, we'll be able to get them on our side and have a positive discussion about it on the day.
And Umberto, I think many members of our audience might actually be surprised to find that although it's an advisory body, there doesn't appear to be a mechanism for Senate to actually formally submit its advice. I mean, as a department, what input have you got to the process on Wednesday?
Yeah, we pushed for a representative from our department to be present, and eventually they agreed on that. And so our head of department, Caroline Jackson, will provide a presentation. Unfortunately, which I find very disappointing, she wouldn't be able to participate in the discussion. But that's the input that we can have on the day. I think the other input is that the Sheffield University College Union organized an informal pre-meeting with senators, so just whoever of the senators wanted to come to have a discussion with us. And I thought that was very positive. Some of our students were there too. And what I found positive about that is that in that discussion, I felt that people were interested in listening, which is very much contrary to the experience we have had in our relationship with either faculty management or in our two meetings with the Pro-Vice Chancellor. Neither us or the students, and I think Helen can mention that herself, have had really the impression that they were interested in what we had to say. With the senators, it was really a different story.
So one final question before we sort of wind up and maybe look ahead to what you hope might happen on Wednesday. But obviously, we broke the story about the material being, quotes, disposed of. There have also been suggestions that the secretary of the group, of the review group, was instructed not to release material to you until after the various rows in the media and this being exposed in the media. It was finally belatedly released last week. Do you have trust in the process? And I'll ask both of you that question.
Is that a serious question? I mean, it's absolutely no trust in the process whatsoever. There is a mountain of evidence that shows that we have no reason to trust this process. I mean, just to give you the example of this report, this is a report that was denied to us because it was confidential, okay? And then, as you said, after pressure, after about a week, this report emerges, and then we can see it. What has changed? Okay, so I think this is just a classic case of this constant ambiguity around the process that has characterized the whole activity of, well, I don't know if it's the whole board or if it's one individual in the board. I don't know about that. And to be honest with you, I'm not even that interested. What I'm interested in is that the University of Sheffield is being badly mistreated and its reputation is damaged by the action of an oligarchy within the university who obviously seem to believe that they own the university. And so all our campaign is addressed towards reminding them that they don't own the university. The university belongs to the students, the staff, the city, the country.
And I'll just finish perhaps with a quick question and maybe ask you for a quick comment. Recently, Deputy Vice Chancellor Jill Valentine has been in the news because it emerged that she told a student meeting that if the university lowered its grades for admissions, it would be admitting Aldi quality students to a Marks and Spencer's organisation. What do you think that says about the attitude of the senior managers?
Well, it definitely doesn't make students feel very good about ourselves, especially given that, you know, for example, we talked about my story earlier, I wouldn't have been accepted had I applied for my undergrad, but there are so many students, especially in the archaeology department, who do foundation years and work really hard to get into their undergraduates. And it definitely makes us feel, not valuable at all, pretty insulted, to be honest. I personally think that it's classist as a comment. I think that it plays into larger issues of socioeconomic justice, you know, racialized minorities who don't have the same access to education. And I think it completely disregards huge groups of people. I also think it's outrageous that Jill Valentine is the diversity and equity lead, diversity champion at the university. I don't think that that's a role that she should have. And I actually think that there should be a vote of no confidence in both her and the Vice Chancellor on the back of all of this.
And Umberto, as a member of staff who has to deal face to face with those same students, how does it make you feel?
Well, to be honest with you, Andy, we have been saying this for years. Students are treated by universities nowadays as merchandise, and staff are treated as laborers from whom to suck as much blood as you can. We have been saying this for years. This is an absolute tragedy. It's a human and institutional and cultural tragedy for this country. And there is something that has got to be done about this. So Jill Valentine's comment, they are despicable, they are disgusting, but they don't surprise me because they reflect kind of a more general attitude towards people which, to be honest with you, a lot of political establishment is embracing too.
I think that's probably a good point to leave today's conversation on. I hope we'll have a chance to talk to you again, certainly after the Senate meets on Wednesday. In the meantime, Helen Thompson, Professor Umberto Albarella, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. Good to see you.
Aldi academics indeed. I quite like Aldi, to be honest. The middle aisle's really good. Also Lidl, the middle at Lidl. Great antipasti. You know, nothing wrong with Aldi.
Well, you might argue that Professor Valentine is maybe a little bit behind the times, because certainly, I don't know about you, but certainly the broadsheet supplements that I read are full of how the middle classes have adopted Aldi as their supermarket of choice because they provide top-notch quality at very affordable prices.
Yeah, but you're missing the point there, Andy. You know, the working classes go there as well. It's a meeting place, as so should be universities be. You see. Anyway, I'm sure Sheffield will probably have something to say about this stuff.
I think they would. I mean, all the statements that they've issued up until now, that they have said that they are continuing to negotiate with their staff. They said that after the letter from the University and College Union last week. They would also say that the review acknowledges the fact that the status quo can't stand, as they see it, that the archaeology, in their view, is a declining subject and it's not affordable to continue in its current form at Sheffield. And what they're doing is a reasonable response to that, to ensure that they can maintain excellence while, you know, offloading parts of the programme that are no longer sustainable.
I'm sure they would say that. It's been an interesting day, has it not? And this has been an extra long bonus, as it were. Bonus, the deluxe length, Aldi deluxe length episode of, or would that be M&S? This isn't just watching brief, this is an M&S watching brief. Anyway, it's been a long
which version of the caterpillar cake are we, basically? That's what it boils down to.
Exactly.
Are we Colin, or are we, I don't know, Casper, or whatever the other one is? I don't know. Cuthbert, sorry. Cuthbert.
Yeah. Great northeast saint, man after my own heart. Lived on an island, avoided people. No, in all seriousness.
Which in current circumstances is probably not a bad lifestyle to adopt.
Absolutely. Anyway, it's been a long day, folks. And
as you can tell.
Well, yeah, and between you and me, I'm a little bit punch drunk because I'm, 4 days away now from going on a 2-week holiday. So it's this week we're going to be following up almost certainly on Wednesday, I think, with what happens at Sheffield on Wednesday, and we'll keep a close eye on this, and we continue to be concerned, I suppose, about what's happening at Sheffield. And we'll continue to talk about it.
And most of the rest of the archaeology world, I think. Whatever view you take on it, it's the upheaval is unmistakable, and just at a human level, it's concerning.
Yeah. With that in mind, folks, until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.